Hello, and welcome to the BHF Boardroom Series podcast. I'm Matt Hughes, founder of Accommodate Consulting and creator of the business of hotel franchising, maximising performance and profit. This series is about real conversations with people who actually move the numbers. Owners, operators, advisors. The folk who turn brand theory into bankable performance. Each episode digs into what drives results inside the franchise model. Agreements, operations, revenue, the lot. Today, we're focusing on the bit that quietly decides everything else. How you run the hotel, day after day, consistently, and still leave room for smart judgment, which is why I'm very happy to be joined today by someone who's lived it across openings, rebrands, and operations. Graham Norris is managing partner at InnPractice, a team known for sharpening operations, lifting guest experience, and building resilience in franchised environments. InnPractice work across openings, turnarounds and performance optimization. And we're proud to partner together on projects where calm execution matters. Graham, welcome. How are you?
Morning, Matt. I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. Nice to be with you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. I know you're a busy man, so it's great to have you on the show as we start this new series. So look, Graham, I'm going to jump straight into it. Why don't you give us the short version of InnPractice, maybe the problem you're obsessed with solving for owners, and the one lever you pull first when you land on site?
Well, I mean, InnPractice we set up a year ago. Obviously, as you know, the UK market is very, very mature in terms of, a third-party standalone owner, third-party operator, and franchise agreement.
Correct.
And there's a number of people in the market doing that. What we saw was that actually some of the larger legacy operators, not all, but some, are starting to lose their sheen because they've become too large and inflexible and no longer aligned to the owner. It had to be the other way around because this is how we do it, sort of thing. So InnPractice is really set up to address that problem head on and actually be very, very aligned and flexible with the specific owner's requirements and outlook, rather than having to fit into the way we work, and to align with a number of very industry-leading partners, much like yourself, but others, to give an owner a cradle-to-grave approach to their asset from acquisition to sale at the end, if that's what is required.
Yes.
So that's InnPractice. It's really about being ultimately flexible and completely aligned and responsive to owners, rather than having a massive layer of management that owners have to fight through to get the answer.
Music to many people's ears, I'm sure. I mean, a couple of things that resonated there: flexibility and the situation where you hear people say, well, this is how we've always done it. And of course, the world has changed so much. Tell me, when you go to a hotel, how can you tell that it's run from the P&L and not just the SOP binder?
Well, that you can tell within literally seconds. Hotels that are run via the P&L tend to have staff who are completely engaged and are trying. They're asking questions. They're talking to guests. You're seeing upselling happening live in front of you. You're seeing anticipation in terms of what guest needs might be, rather than people standing around waiting for people to ask them for something. So usually when the P&L is driving the business, every individual member of the team knows what small things they can do to impact the ultimate performance and result, whether that be selling an extra coffee, 2 courses rather than 1, upselling from a standard room to an executive room on check-in, all those sorts of things. And when you walk into a hotel, you can simply feel how engaged and interested the staff are in making those things happen.
You've hit the nail on the head, actually. And I was engaged in a conversation this morning about this. Somebody asked a similar question, and you're right. It's about communicating to the guest. It's a simple thing, but if you're just focusing on the process, the one thing that I noticed straight away is that heads down in the computer. That's all they're doing. They're filling out because they've got to do this. It's boxed, as opposed to welcoming the guest and the element of hospitality. But Graham, you've worked across multiple franchise flags. If we strip away those logos, what do outperformers have in common operationally?
Well, basically, if you have a brand, the last thing you do is you say, great, we've got the flag, we'll stand back and let the brand deliver everything, because it's a two-way street. It has to be a one-team approach. So the best performers in that space have completely bought into the brand. They're completely aligned, all the brand systems, so they're up to speed with what they can do for you. And also, they are connected at every level across both organizations, whether it's a large operating organization ownership or a small one. They're connected at every level with the relevant people in the brand teams, so they know where to go to and who to work with to maximize whatever opportunity it is. And you'll find that those types of hotels also don't worry too much about QAs and brand audits, because they see them as just part of the thing you've just bought into.
It's the
really
system, it's the
important
culture
thing.
you've bought into. Yeah. It always
Yeah.
surprised me the number of people who would sign a franchise agreement, and then that's the last thing you'd hear from them. And it was outrageous. And you just think, gosh, this is a system that's been cultivated over decades, and it works. And as you say, the people who really engage at all levels, all the organization, get the most out of things. Yeah.
One of the things I saw was, as well as working on the operational side, I've also worked for one of the big brands on the other side. So on the franchise side, so I worked for one of the big brands, managing and working with franchisees. And the number of franchisees I saw who were, trying to reinvent the wheel. So you have a brand that gives you certain things, and these are the things, these are the tools the levers you can pull to drive your business.
Yes.
But no, because
Yeah.
there's a perceived cost for some of this stuff, some of them try to get around it, which is just counterproductive. Yeah.
Well, it ends up in duplication, doesn't it? And I see a lot of that. And in fact, actually, that's probably one of the areas where I'm sure, through your experience and the team that you've developed in practice, where you add value. What's the most useful thing in your experience that an owner can do, say, in the first 30 days with a new flag to de-risk, say, the next 10 years?
Well, the first thing an owner's got to do is not make the assumption that, having made the investment, having signed the agreement, that all he or she has to do is sit back and wait for the business to improve or happen. Because actually, unless you're extremely lucky and have one of the most in-demand locations in the UK, then that isn't going to happen. You have to work with the brand. So I think the best thing they can do right at the beginning is fully immerse themselves in all the brand activity, including going to the brand owners' induction programs. Make sure that all of their teams at whatever level and whatever size are fully trained on all the brand systems, because you'll know that, whichever brand you're talking about, they all have quite complicated and extensive systems that you really have to know how to use, whether it be the depository of all the information, or the loyalty scheme, how that works, and all these sorts of things. So you really need to get your head around that, and you need to do it fast. And you need to make sure that you foster those relationships early, because it's no surprise, is it, that a brand and a brand team are going to work for you harder if you have a relationship with them. If you just sign the relationship and then say, okay, we'll wait for it to happen, the brand team have got a lot of hotel support, so they're going to support the ones that are working with them, right? So you have to be very, very engaged at all levels across the ownership and operation structure with the brand.
It's the old,
but also, I think,
it's the old squeaky wheel scenario, isn't it? At the end of the day, especially if you've got thousands of hotels as a brand company, it's the people who engage, the people, and it evolves, doesn't it? And that's the thing, you see, because the travelers' expectations continue to change and evolve. So it's imperative that owners continue to engage and educate themselves, because it's going to change. What's relevant today is not necessarily what's going to be relevant tomorrow. Yeah.
No, and also on the other side of things is, all good people want to be challenged, and there's good people on both sides. The way I look at it is, the brand team is just part of the hotel team. It's not us and them. We're all doing one thing, right? But I think to be able to challenge both ways, so the brand challenge us when they do QAs and all sorts of things, which is good, to keep us online and help us deliver the best possible guest experience, etc. But also, an owner and the operator should not hold back from challenging the other way round. What is the brand doing for us in
Hmm.
this particular circumstance? What
Yes.
other things can be done within the brand tools, and push them. And good people like to be pushed, so it
Yeah,
shouldn't be
completely.
an issue.
And conflict is healthy at the end of the day in a partnership, especially a partnership that can last, 20, 30 years. And the bedrock of it are the brand standards, what you've signed up for. And that, in essence, is there to protect the promise to the guest. There's a lot of brand value there, but they're often, of course, from an owner's perspective, seen as a cost. How do you turn compliance into advantage rather than admin?
Well, again, this is mindset, because if you really understand what the brand is and what you're setting yourselves up for in terms of the long-term relationship, I personally don't see as a cost. I see it as a cost if you don't do it. So my view is that, if you need to do a specific thing, obviously when you have an asset, you need to keep up the asset quality. You need to make sure that condition over time is repaired or recovered. You need to fix things that break. You need to keep everything running exactly 100%. The brand is not doing anything other than helping you do that, plus the health and safety side of things, which you would want to do anyway. So my view is that this is not really a cost. It's more of a cost if you don't do it. And ultimately these days, there is all sorts of different owners, right? Some are very long-term family ownership, which never going to sell. Some are, 5-year mezzanine plans that the investment's going to roll over and they're going to want to sell, having turned the
Hmm.
business around or what have you. Everybody has different objectives, but if you want to get the best end solution for your hotel, best price, or to the best buyer, then you're going to have to do all these things correctly. So it's a cost if you don't do it. Basically, that's the way I look at it. And
It is.
again, with people we work with, you're recruiting to make sure you have people with the right mindset. If you've cracked that, then they do not see Q&A and brand standards as a burden.
Hmm.
They see them as a support structure. In the best one in the world with a QA, for example, if you work in a hotel for 5 years, you do stop seeing certain things. It's great to have another perspective from someone else who walks into your hotel on a
Mm,
Wednesday and see something that perhaps you haven't seen today yet. And the way
completely.
I look at it, and the way we work with the people we work with, is, look, think of this as another pair of eyes. This is just another member of your team helping us keep on top of the things we need to do, because there are so many things. I mean, like, when I was a GM, it was quite simple. You didn't spend your whole life sitting in front of screens typing
Hmm.
in 40 logins for all different things. You actually were on the floor with guests,
Yes. And
seeing stuff.
they
So
tell you
now
what
it's,
matters. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I personally think of it as, a cost you will cost you if you don't do it. Of course,
Hmm.
you've got to be realistic, haven't you? That, right now, and since COVID, and even before that, there's a lot of financial pressures on businesses.
Yes.
So it's easy to, um, you know cut the cost of something, perhaps for a short term cash flow benefit or what have you.
Mm,
Ultimately, in the long term, those things come back to bite you. So you do have to, try not to make penny wise, pound foolish decisions, or throw the baby out with the bathwater just to react to a certain situation. But of course, I'm mindful that, money is expensive at the moment, and, um,
mm.
yeah, you have to be careful with the capex spending, of course. Yeah.
Well, especially in a world of asset managers, there's always going to be a correlation drawn between brand standards and bottom line and profit. Any particular examples you can share in terms of a QA fix that lifted revenue or review score within a quarter? So there's sort of quick fix that can make the difference?
Yeah, a really good one, a big brand. I won't say which one. A big airport hotel. Obviously, having come through this, although this is post-COVID, having come through COVID, to survive, the hotel had to take a big CBILS loan, so was under pressure financially. And as a result of that financial pressure, a number of sort of capex and investment decisions had been delayed. because there simply wasn't any money to do it. And what was happening was the business was still very busy, so it recovered very quickly after COVID from a revenue point. But its guest satisfaction scores were awful, and this was as a result of investment. As a result of that underinvestment, low morale in the team because it was also limited service brands,
The knock-on effect.
very limited number of people in a very busy hotel. Anyway, the QA helped us to really explain to the owner if we need to do this because this is we're signed into this as a brand, but we do this is going to have a big impact on our guest satisfaction, which will have a knock-on effect on our staff morale, which will reduce staff turnover and have a big impact. So actually the owner approved a significant amount of capex on a rolling basis to address all the issues, and in the first quarter when that work started, it hadn't been completed, but when the work started, the guest satisfaction scores went from very low at risk sort of level to above satisfactory and continued to grow. And to this date, it hasn't reversed. So it went back to the place it should have been.
Okay.
And that was simply and that's the way you use these things. This is not a QA is not a stick to beat you with. It's a tool to help you communicate with owners or whatever it might be to do the right thing. So and the brand, of course,
there's no silver bullet, is there? There's no sort of quick win. Yeah,
no,
well, that's it.
The brand, of course, understood that the guy was under pressure. So they're not being ridiculous to say, well,
no,
yeah, you're going to have
a bit of forbearance there. Yeah. Where do hotels most often fail brand audits?
Yeah, mostly careless administration errors would be my call, where perhaps they're not 100% aligned with the importance of the brand and doing those things, and therefore in a busy day perhaps the administration is the last thing they get round to doing. And so I've seen that a lot. People work not in the right place, or a waiver is missing. And the other one which tends to get hotels is condition, where they've stopped seeing the relative condition of the furniture in the public area or the curtains or something. And they've become sort of deemed acceptable because they just see them. They haven't noticed they've changed.
Yeah.
So those are the things. Yeah.
It's a slippery slope then, isn't it? What about if you could add yourself, if you could add one line to every franchise QA checklist, what would it be and why? What's not there?
It would be following the last QA. What were the things that the brand committed to do on the back of the output? So sometimes it's, for example, they missed their brand standard score because 3 waivers had not been presented. So the brand would then commit to say, "Oh yes, it was our fault. We didn't do the work we didn't do the paperwork. We'll get it to you." Did they do that, or was there something with regard to support for an F&B program or a CAFEX program or something on brand standards, which isn't possible to deliver because it's conversion or something? So that would be one thing, is a line to challenge the brand itself on.
Yeah, well, that's fair. It's not just one way, is it? It's a partnership that has to work together. Yeah. I remember when I used to talk to owners, the importance of internal audits, especially different departments. They used to love the thought of accountancy auditing housekeeping, or housekeeping auditing sales, and so on, because you said that fresh perspective. Maybe you can talk me through your internal mock audit approach. How do you keep it honest without killing morale?
Well, what we encourage people to do is to allow all new staff to do one. First of all, anybody new that's coming in really ought to have the opportunity to stay in the hotel and walk in the guest's shoes.
I see. Okay.
What's the service like? What's the bedroom like? What's the food like, etc. And also within the first, during the induction period, to allow them to take part and do the mock audits, because all the brands you have to do quarterly self-assessments anyway.
Correct.
So So, get involved in those. And again, I think that's a good thing. Another pair of eyes, fresh pair of eyes with a different perspective to your own, and also makes them
Yes,
feel an important part of the team early on, because you're trusting them with this important feedback
I love
that
it.
you're looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, completely. We always used to talk about, especially when there's GM turnover, and that GM within the first quarter has to book sort of a non-accountable audit to really understand it. But I love what you're saying there. Any new member of staff has to walk as a guest and provide that fresh feedback. Graham, if you had to write the owner's one-page operating system, what are the 5 non-negotiables that must happen weekly without fail?
Well, these are not really brand or franchise specific, but they're more about the commercial performance of the hotel. I mean, um, sales planning, rolling forecast, resource plan, in terms of payroll, but also other resources, food and beverage purchasing, linen purchasing, etc. Uh, Getting on top of out of order rooms and maintenance issues,
Mm,
and the health and safety. But on the brand side, the one thing they must really be on top of is making sure they are optimized for the loyalty scheme, i.e., they are open as they should be. But also, because actually, to me, those things are the biggest wins from any brand. A big loyalty scheme like Marriott, Bonvoy,
yes.
Hilton Honors, IHG Award will
Yeah.
protect a hotel in a downturn. So first of all, making sure you're open and not see this as oh, I'm only going to get, you know,
My base
95
rate. Yeah.
rate. See it as an opportunity, and in certain locations, because the average rates are so high and their demand is high, you really want that business. And the second one is to make sure that you are on top of the redemption and the
Mm,
points charge, because I think because the loyalty scheme is a very big thing. So those are the main things. But I think these days sales, sales are more important. You used to be able to look at a P&L and L and say, okay, we can change this business's profile by keeping the sales as they are and taking a lot of cost out. But
mm,
that doesn't really exist anymore. The cost base has changed so dramatically since COVID and onwards,
yes.
with all the latest national insurance rises last year, that
Yes.
it's just not feasible to rip out costs anymore, unless you're taking on a hotel from a legacy or long-term
Mm,
operator owner who's stopped doing the right
really
things. But
overspec. Yeah. Mm.
yeah, yeah,
But you're right with the loyalty side of things. It's education on what that is and really sort of managing loyalty as its own segment and understanding the power of that system that you've signed up for. Okay, so
yeah. I
which
mean, the
case?
thing is, if you, and again, I've seen this a lot where some people have this mindset that, oh, I'm losing money by having that open, or this is a cost I don't want to spend. But what's the alternative? The alternative is that instead of selling that room to an engaged brand ambassador,
Yes,
you're
it
just going to
sits
have to
empty.
spend a lot more money buying it from Booking.com or some sort of OTA. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Well, as you intimated there, things have changed, especially post-COVID. Labour and service quality are, as we know, joined at the hip. What's working now on scheduling, cross-training, and service recovery that didn't exist, say, 5 years ago?
Well, there's a lot of good systems out there for all those things. We've used systems like Fourth Hospitality and things like that for all the rostering and forecasting and things like that. And being on top of rostering to flex it based on demand is very important. There's lots of great things out there in terms of benefit systems to help people get added value instead of on top of their wages. A Happy Hub. There's one called Happy Hub, which gives you discounts from shopping and supermarkets and all sorts of things. There's a lot of systems you can use. Like, for example, you're probably aware of a system called Kipsu, which is an on-property and online system that when you check into a hotel, it's an immediate sort of WhatsApp style feedback and follow-up system. So that if you get to your room and there's a pillow missing, it can be dealt with immediately, or things like that. And those sorts of things make a huge difference. Obviously, we're moving now into much more, AI is driving a lot of really interesting stuff now with regard to guest experience. So
Okay.
we have partnered with an AI concierge, for example,
Okay.
which
Yes.
is useful in two ways. One is the ability, as you know, especially these days when your your staffing is as tight as it can be because you're under significant pressure from payroll, national insurance, minimum wage, etc. So my view is yes, rather than cut the payroll, what you want to do is employ the right people and pay them more than you would have normally
Yeah.
done in the past,
Because the
and
cost of
use
replacing is
technology.
far higher.
Yeah, and use technology to cut out some of the things which create backlogs. So things like frequently asked questions, people coming to reception or phoning reception and saying,
Hmm.
"What time is breakfast? Can I? Where's the hair dryer? Can you book me a taxi?" All these things. AI concierge helps with that because you can sit in your room or downstairs in the lobby and you can speak to it and say, "Where's the
Yes.
nearest Italian restaurant? Can I get a taxi?" Or what time does breakfast start? All these things. So
Yes.
that takes all those questions away from reception. So that's one thing that's really good. But also um, the other thing which you see in hotels is where hotels fall down is the consistency of service. Um, you order uh, uh, a chicken sandwich with fries, let's say, on a
Hmm.
Tuesday, because one particular chef is working, it looks like this. The next
Yes.
day you
Yeah.
order the
Oh, I'll
same
have
thing.
that again.
So this enables people to, first of all, keep their payroll tight, but also do the things. So allow the humans to do the hospitality
Yes.
and allow the technology to do the process,
To
constant,
keep that
consistent.
consistency. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so
Yeah.
that's. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people on both sides of the argument about technology and hospitality, and obviously, I don't think human contact is always going to be a massive part of hospitality, but there are things
Hmm.
like contactless check, contactless check-in, contactless ordering at payment in restaurants, AI concierge, that sort of thing, which can really elevate the experience because it allows the humans to do the hospitality and have those conversations about looking for leads, looking for upsells, looking for contact. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
I think
As I
you're right.
said
And
a little while ago,
there's a degree of expectation, isn't there, and instant gratification. I know with my children, they're what I would term probably COVID babies. So they just say, we'll just order it on Amazon. The man will bring it, and they just, they're used to just things being there when they want it. So, if we allow it,
yeah,
but these are the people that are going to be staying in the hotels that are going to, that technology element is just going to be table stakes. But you're right, it's got to be consistent. And technology is helpful until it isn't. Where does tech genuinely remove friction for teams? Where does it just add another logging? Because that's the thing, systems aren't all connected.
yeah. I mean that is a big problem. The amount of passwords we all have, and those passwords change and need renewing every 3 weeks, and you're having to remember what password it was and then change it again. It's a nightmare. Um, there. I just head back to the point I made when I was a GM was like we didn't have any of these systems. Managers and GMs and things, they were doing crazy things like talking to guests and being on the floor. It's like unheard
Yes.
of now. And yeah, I think there is probably too much technology in our business. I mean, obviously you're doing, health and safety is all online, procurement and is all online, payroll's online, resourcing is online, signing holidays is online. You're doing your forecasts on an online system. So you could go to your office and sit down and just sit in front of a screen all day and
Easily. Yes.
and be a guest. So I think the key one for me is a lot of these systems are not aligned.
Mm,
So you have to have 12 passwords. The systems don't talk to each other, even though these days there's a lot of open API systems which will talk to each other.
okay.
One of the things that InnPractice has got actually is as part of our offer, we actually have our own white label software that does a few of these things. So if you're an owner and you decide you're going to get a franchise with Marriott, you will still have to have online systems to do a lot of the basic things like payroll, rostering, health and
Correct.
safety, blah, blah, blah. And very often, so you have to buy those things and you use whatever system you get to. For an unsophisticated, and by that I mean someone who's maybe not got their own back office, haven't got a big company, maybe one asset or two assets. That's a cost maybe you could avoid, and we can provide that free of charge because we have a suite of systems called Insights, which is in control, in time, and in room, which gives you all that back office stuff included in our fee. And you only need one password. It's great, but
there's a lot of
doesn't really work.
That is very good. For owners to understand that, to know that their staff are only then going to have to be in one system, I think, especially with dual step verification and all these other things, you're in and out all the systems all the time, and then you get logged out, and then you've got to call someone in wherever it is. Usually it's not in the UK, and it just adds time and delays, especially if you're guest facing. Gosh, yeah.
Well,
let's zoom out.
You mentioned earlier. Sorry, Matt. You mentioned earlier about eye contact, and
yes,
I often wonder. You see people learn how to check somebody in by using the PMS they have on site and doing whatever that machine does. But in the past, we would understand what that machine was doing because we had done it manually before. But now I don't think people know what they're actually doing. So they're just going through a process, and that's where hospitality can be destroyed by IT.
Oh, completely. But you end up then getting asked a question because they're following the user-defined fields in the PMS and asking you things that are obviously not relevant. If you're there with a family and all, bring back face-to-face contact. Let's zoom out for a second. We've touched the standards and the rhythm. I want to press a little bit on the money for a moment. In a franchise, we know that the fees are pretty fixed and demand isn't necessarily. What are the 2 or 3 operational moves that protect NOI fastest when the market softens?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the franchise fees they're not fixed in that sense. They're incremental in the sense they're a percentage of gross room revenue. So if your gross room revenue flexes, your fees do flex a little bit, right? Some of the fees are fixed, like the IT fee, perhaps the distribution fee is fixed, but a big chunk of it is incremental. There's a couple of ways of skinning the cat here, but normally I would say in a soft market, what you're looking for is to make sure that your market share is continuing to stay the same or improve. And even if the market is soft, in any particular market, there might be, even in a small town with 6 or 7 hotels, there will be enough demand on any given night for your hotel to do the best out of all the hotels in that market. So it's down to you to drive it. So I would say double down on sales activity. Revenue managers don't create demand. So sales and marketing creates demand. So do not make the mistake of cutting back on sales activity when the market gets tough. In my mind, that's when you should be investing in it more.
Over-indexing, yeah.
The loyalty scheme is absolutely crucial in times like that. So make sure you're wide open. Make sure you're even doing things like expanding the employee rate that you have with a brand to make sure you're marketing that, because employees are ambassadors. They will recommend your hotel if they have a good stay. And if you've got a 100-bed hotel and you're not going to sell 20 rooms on any night, why would you not have an employee rate? Because
completely,
you're covering
especially if you're part of a large brand that may have 750,000 people working for it around the world, tap into that. Much better having people coming through the door than an expensive OTA rate.
And the other one is, as I mentioned before, about how do you see a hotel run from the P&L? Great teams, you will see that the members of the teams understand what position the hotel is in at any given time and whether the market's changing. They will understand. So aligned people and engaged people will be, and the direction from the GM, etc., will be that actually we're in a tough position. We're trying to really protect our market share or grow it, despite the fact that the market is soft. And therefore, upselling is more important than ever. So that extra coffee, that extra dessert, the upgrade to an exec room, the extra night, the using the gym, whatever it might be, all those things are incredibly important. And again, engaged teams really focus on those sorts of things.
Yes.
I would also say that, yes, of course, you've got to control your costs, but
Mm.
cutting costs for the sake of it is often counterproductive.
That's true. I remember a GM,
So,
a very charismatic GM I used to work with years ago. And in the downturn, he would double his spending on flowers. And that was a simple thing, but very visual, that just showed, this is when you need to over-index, where you need to invest in sales and marketing for to pick up. But the reality is downturns happen. Give me a moment you'd call a board review. What thresholds trigger it for you?
well, you should not ever be in a position where you have to call a board review as an exception,
Mm-hmm.
other than obviously things like COVID. I mean, that was the most stressful period I've ever lived through. But
Yes,
um,
got
if
the
you are
scars.
if you are aligned, yeah, I have got the scars. If you are aligned with the owner, you have open communication. You're telling the truth. And what I've seen with owners over the last year, when we've been talking to them about their situation, is they say that what's going on, particularly with the sort of legacy, larger and flexible operators, is that they're all very good at spinning with flashy PowerPoint presentations and um, trying to pull out the positives, but they're hiding the negatives. And my view is, just tell the owners the truth. These people are sensible people.
Yes.
These people have got a lot of money invested here. So tell them the
Mm,
truth. If you make a mistake, own up to it immediately, because usually they're pragmatic and actually will help to find a solution. So you shouldn't really be in a position where you ever need to call an extraordinary meeting, because you're having regular meetings anyway. If you're telling the truth and sharing the real position, i.e., for example, when you send the monthly reporting situation out and it's got a rolling forecast,
hmm
don't fudge the forecast. If there's a big hole in 4 months or 6 months, let
Yes.
them see it.
Yeah, we need to talk about
And
it.
then let them see what you think we should be doing about it and what we've already started, but also get their take on what perhaps they can do. Because often I've come across owners that said, actually, okay, would it help if we invest in this or invest in that?
Yes.
Don't hide that from them. They don't have the
hmm
opportunity to be involved in that discussion. So
Yeah,
I would say,
completely.
unless you have a situation where the relationship isn't good, then you shouldn't
hmm
ever be in the need to call an extraordinary meeting, because you're
Yeah.
already touching on all these points anyway.
Well, I love it about trust and communication. If there is a hole there, talking about it, because sometimes that is the opportunity to do some works or to test something, because, hey, it's already poor anyway. Let's see, and then we'll know, as opposed to trying something when the business is there and impacting it. But I've read something this morning which truly resonated. You can't taste burnt coffee on a spreadsheet, and that
I saw
talks
that.
to you
Yeah.
being out there. And Graham, how do you coach these GMs then, your new GMs, to think like asset managers without turning them into spreadsheet owner leaders, which unfortunately I'm sure some people have become?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that. I mean, if you're in the position where you're actually recruiting the GM, then you have the opportunity to recruit properly. So with the right experience, the right mental approach, the right view of the world. So it's easier that way, because you're choosing the person who thinks like that. If you're inheriting a GM from a takeover position or some other reason, perhaps a sale with a TUPE process, then you really have to allow them to think that actually this is my business, and if it was my money, i.e., the GM's money, what would I be doing with it? And very often, actually, you come across people who perhaps look like they're spreadsheet warriors, but the reason they're in that mindset is because they have not been allowed to make decisions or to think like that,
Okay.
because they've been
Yes.
controlled by someone else who doesn't want to think like that. So I often find that people who've performed in a particular way under other leadership doesn't mean to say that they're bad GMs or they're not like they're not thinking like that. It's just that they've had it.
They haven't been empowered. They haven't been given that trust.
Well, yeah. So giving trust, but I guess if you're able to, if you're recruiting the GM, it's much easier because you're recruiting that mindset. Ultimately, it's about, look, as InnPractice, we are not running the hotel for you. We're working with you to get the best performance and outcome for your owner. That's what we're all here to do. However,
yes,
as general manager, you are accountable for this business, and therefore you have to think about, okay, the thing I'm about to do, would I do this if it's my money? And the other thing I think is, there's a lot of data involved in business now, and much of that is a good thing, right? It helps you understand where the low-hanging fruit is and what levers to pull. But I think where a lot of people have got to is, there's so much data, it's difficult to
see the wood from the trees to get the clarity. Yes.
Yeah. And also, I think data is helping prevent decisions. Actually, I'm a big believer in gut feel. My thing is that, if you have an idea of a way to improve incremental revenue or RevPAR or TrevPAR or RGI or guest satisfaction or asset value or anything like that, then the worst thing you can do is not do it. So my view is, have an idea, let's try it. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is it won't work. We'll try something else.
Well, exactly. But rather than sitting back saying, well, I said we should have done that, and give us a real world example, bring that to life, where small operational changes have moved RevPAR index, so your market share, or flow through meaningfully.
Well, I give you a really, really good example, although it wasn't a branded hotel. It's a 5-star hotel in the Channel Islands that, and the 5-star moniker was the issue. So Channel Islands is very seasonal, right? And so this hotel had at the time a Michelin star restaurant, a beautiful spa, and beautiful rooms and great location. But they had taken the view that because they were 5-star, there's no way we're going to discount our room rate because we're 5-star. Okay. Why should people get to our hotel for free, basically? But they were missing the point. So at the time we got involved, the hotel was losing a fortune. I mean, over £1 million loss in the year previous before we got involved. Making one small change, a mindset change actually, is that actually use the rooms in the off season as an entry level into higher spend in Michelin star restaurant, because people who want to come to this can't afford your summer rate. Yes. Michelin star restaurant, use the spa. We made that change, and in the second year, occupancies flew. The RevPAR was great, and they went from losing a fortune to making significant profit in the following year. We had to tweak it a few times just to get the right balance. But yeah, that was basically one conversation on the first week that we got involved to understand what was going on. One conversation.
Well, that's great, especially with TrevPAR, when people get, just focused on too much on one metric. I remember going to see an owner, and he would only be happy if his hotel had the highest ADR in the market. I was saying, well, you've only got 20% occupancy. What do? You need to look at RevPAR. You need to look at market share. No, it's got to be ADR. It's got to be ADR. But especially with the example you've given there, when you've got TrevPAR, that's wonderful, because you've got all these other outlets that you need to service, and the room is only the introduction to that. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Too many people do focus on a particular thing, and obviously, particularly owners who are not hoteliers, they pick out the KPIs that they can understand, which is occupancy and average rate usually.
Yes.
But actually, in a hotel with lots and lots of revenue centers, TrevPAR is the key. It's absolutely the key.
Sure.
Because you can have the highest average rate and sell no food, no beverage, no spa, no golf. They stay there and leave. So yeah.
And that's why it's always good to have those. I mean, you mentioned it earlier on, everyone's got different objectives. I always say every owner has different motivations and expectations. So sometimes if you've got an element of vanity and so on, it's good to understand that and be able to manage that as the relationship develops. Let's talk a little bit about ESG. Obviously, ESG has moved from a brand initiative to an operational imperative. How are you seeing hotels successfully now balance people, planet, and profit? And what's the cost of inaction if they don't start embedding sustainability today?
Well, I would say this is a moral imperative more than anything. I think we all have to be part of the solution rather than the problem. And I think all of us, would recognize that in hotels we're pretty late to the party. There was a lot of things around, plastic bottles for water, bulk amenities and that kind of thing. But I think, that wasn't plastic straws. That really wasn't touching the surface. I think the
Sure.
big issue is that, from guests right now and to get the right employees right now,
Hmm.
guests are looking for discerning choices. They want to be aligned with companies that are doing the right thing because many of them are trying to do the right thing themselves in their own lives. But if you want to get the best people to work for you in the future, those people now coming out of school and university and in their first jobs, it's essential for them that they're working in a business which has the right attitude to this in a more in a sort of very in a realistic way. Though, if you don't take it seriously from a business ownership point of view, you'll be in all sorts of trouble in the future. So first of all, if you're borrowing money, then or refinancing, you will get much lesser. You won't get very good. You won't get the best terms if you're not doing the right things from an ESG point of view. If you ever want to sell your hotel in the future, your pool of potential buyers will be reduced by what you are or not doing in ESG. And in some cases, you'll get to the point where you may not even be able to sell your hotel unless you're doing the right things. Now, obviously, for new builds, this is much easier, but
Of
for
course.
legacy older hotels, it's harder to retrofit a lot of this stuff. Although that's, of course, where a lot of the low hanging fruit is. In terms of water
Hmm.
usage, things like very, very inefficient boilers and air conditioning and things like that. There's a lot of savings in terms of carbon output and also cost to be made. But it is
Yes.
harder, more capex intensive to retrofit this stuff. And I've seen, I can think of several companies that have got much older stock. You worry about whether they'll even be able to
Especially with
sell
hip
them in the future.
cycles and renovations coming up, and yeah, the cost of being left with what you would term a brown asset, where your asset value is massively depreciating to the point where people are not going to buy it because the cost to retrofit it is far too much, and owners really understanding that, and there is especially in certain parts of the world, other markets not so profitability. Sustainability equals profitability if you do it correctly and you have a clear strategy in terms of capex and opex, because of course the two are intrinsically linked. Where does sustainability add measurable commercial value, and how can owners build it into their operating rhythm rather than tweak it as a separate work stream?
Well, it has commercial value because you're effectively, if you're doing the right things, you have a bigger pool of discerning customers who are willing to spend money with you. So my view is that your TrevPAR can be higher if you're doing all those things because, for example, your B menus are locally sourced, or there's a local element to the sourcing of them rather than a national agreement. People can people can see on the menus and make discernible choices about what is the carbon output of the meal I'm about to eat. So instead of eating steak, I'm going to have plant-based a
Hmm.
plant-based dish.
Sure.
I think showing carbon footprint of menus is really important. I think the ability to make a contribution. So one of the partners we have is a company called Karma B Corp, and they work with hotels to help them do this things to change the way we impact our planet. One of the things that we've done and intend to do again in the future is um, we plant a tree for every member of staff that ever works for us, even if they only work for us for 3 weeks. So every year, if you've had, I don't know, 2,000 staff, you plant 2,000 trees. But we're also
Wonderful.
giving the opportunity for a guest to have a tree planted based on their stay with a
Yes.
small extra contribution, like a pound or something, to the bill.
I think that's a really good positive approach, because it's not just focusing on reducing the impact that we're having on the environment. It's actually doing something to actually benefit the environment to begin with in the first place at a low
Yeah,
cost, but a massive return on investment.
yeah. I mean, some of the stuff that you talk about with ESG from an operational point of view, and when you're talking about PR and marketing, some of it is more PR than actual has a massive impact. Now, you, for example, and I know because I looked into this, but you would think that on our menus we should make sure we always have organic food,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Organic food is more carbon intensive than some other kind same food. The other thing is about wine lists was an interesting one for me. Should we stop listing wines from South Africa, Argentina, New Zealand,
Okay. Because the carbon
and
footprint.
only
Yeah.
only have European or English wines? It
Okay.
turns out that, for example, if you compare an Argentinian Malbec to an Italian Chianti,
Yes.
the Argentinian Malbec has a lower carbon footprint because of the way it's shipped, whereas the Italian Chianti is often coming on the back of a lorry in bottles.
Yes.
That
Okay.
was an interesting one. So
Yeah. Well, there's a
sometimes
lot of
it's counter.
assumptions that can be made. Yes. And it's about the transparency and it's communication in general, so that customers can make informed decisions. But yes, yeah. But the world's changed so much. What have the last 12 months taught you about guest expectations that, say, brand manuals haven't caught up with yet?
Well, I think their brands are getting better at this, but obviously, what hotel stays are all about is experience. In good old days, if you like, there was the brand stands were all about how many coat hangers you should have of a certain type and this kind of thing. And I think they need
Yes.
to focus more on what is the guest journey like. They are better. They're better than they
Hmm.
used to be, but it should be more about what is the as a guest, what am I feeling and experiencing as I walk into the car park, as I enter the reception, as I walk into
Yes.
my room, as I sit, whatever. So that's what I'd like to see more of.
Mm.
Less specific. Oh, you must have X, you must have Y.
Yeah, it's
But it is.
difficult. I know some of the brands have experiential audits and it can be quite subjective, but it's true because at the end of the day, people are buying an experience and they have a perception of safety, for example, that, probably does cut across. There's so many things for owners in terms of technology. Where do you see that owners are overspending on shiny and underspending on what the guests actually feel as experiences?
Well, I think obviously as a result of the environment we're in, have been for the last few years, is that a lot of investment in technology is going in to try and reduce cost.
Okay.
Some of which is aligned to the ESG, of course. So people will be spending on all sorts of things to do with boiler efficiency, perhaps putting in new boilers or air conditioning, perhaps
Okay. Fridges.
voltage controls, um,
Hmm.
things like PIR, extraction in kitchens, or removing gas completely and only having induction,
Okay.
things like that. I mean, one of the things you'll go into many hotels, I find the same one is here, right? So I'm in this hotel. It's got a key card thing for
Okay.
the door,
Yeah.
but when you take the key card out, the air conditioning continues to work. If I were to open the window, the air conditioning would continue to work. So
Yeah.
I'm air conditioning East London here. So
Yeah.
there are lots of ways to stop that, and so that sort of investment is happening to control
Okay.
costs, but not so much investment in systems which are either designed to enhance the employee journey to drive
Mm,
to drive engagement, which has a knock-on effect on guest satisfaction and experience. Yeah, or or directly on guest experience things. So
okay.
some and most of that would be capex around improving look and feel of a particular space or what have you. So I think owners are, as a result of the environment we're in, which is understandable,
Yeah, it's more focus
focusing
on the
on
MEP and the efficiency of the building itself rather
yeah.
than the guest journey. Interesting. Interesting. Great. Anything in your current pipeline that you can talk about? An opening, a repositioning, even a single tactic that you're excited to test or scale?
Well, I wouldn't say a tactic. We are 3 or 4 of our first projects are all in one of the major brands, which is as you know, many of the major brands have focused on conversion because development
Hmm.
has just been
Sure.
non-existent for the last couple of years. So all the major brands have got new conversion brands coming
Yes.
through. Three or four of our first ones are with one of the major brands, and two of their new conversion brands. So
Oh, interesting.
we're really excited to do those, and they are for the first time bundling all the franchise costs. So as you know, at the moment, in most cases, franchise fees, which is marketing, reservations, listing fees, you've got the
Yes.
loyalty cost, you've got all sorts of other things around that. Whereas this one, they're starting to bundle it, so you have a clear understanding of
Yes.
what the maximum is.
There's some
So
transparency,
I'm
isn't there?
interested.
You can forecast understanding what your exposure is.
Yes, yes. So I'm looking forward to that. And they're in great city locations. So it'd be interesting, and they'll be the first versions of those brands. In one case, the first version in the UK, and others first versions in that city. So
Okay.
interesting to see that.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, Graham, thank you. That was excellent. Clear, grounded, and useful. Really, really appreciate your time. Thank you. And if you're listening and want to go deeper, check out InnPractice at inpractice.com. And of course, the course itself, the business of hotel franchising, we've linked resources in the description below. Next time, I'll be joined by Raheel Bajia to dig into the commercial engine, organization designed for growth, research that actually changes decisions, and how to execute without burning the team. If this was helpful, please subscribe, share it with someone who runs a hotel, and drop a question for a future video. Until then, thanks for listening.